Well, hey, good morning, gamers. Adam Blue here. Welcome to the BlueGamer Bluecast morning show. I'm your host, Adam Blue, which I just said. But anyway, I'm a professional video game enjoyer and have been for over 30 years. So I have a lot to talk about when it comes to video games, video game news, and all that. In today, I wanted to speak on something specific because this year has been really bad about sensationalizing, posturing, virtue signaling, but not really doing anything about it and then being hypocrites about it, especially coming from someone like me who I don't have a big influence on others. I'm very small and so when I see these bigger influences spout things that are negative, goes into the wrong direction of really what's next, I think it teaches mainstream people the wrong ways to go about things. But at the same time, I think a lot of inherently, if you're an influencer, which would be online, you kind of have this mentality ingrained, unfortunately, of how the social media system works. So a lot of your output has been shaped. A lot of your personality and output is shaped on what's expected to work on social media. And some people get stuck in it. I think I was stuck in that. And then I had to figure that out and get out of it. And when I'm on the other side of it, I can see other influencers, stuck in that. And it makes me feel bad. So we're going to talk about some news. Did I do any gaming yesterday? I don't think so. If I did, I don't remember. I was toying around with the retro handhelds, and I got to say they are a pain in the ass. In my opinion, just buy one, use it to play games. Don't try to do anything special with them because there's just always something. And I've learned that through the years, especially with having physical hardware with my computer. When you want to get into something and kind of go that extra step, unless there's an official means to do so, you're always going to run into unsupported situations, and it gets really annoying. Hey, morning, Ultronymous. Yes, this track is the Space Dojo track from Double Dragon Neon, the Way Forward produced Double Dragon game, which I think is excellent. The whole soundtrack is amazing. Okay, and so this has to do with yesterday, Microsoft announcing the closure of 4 studios. Although, really, this has been happening for a while. And so what my main thing here is, yesterday when I'm listening to my video game podcast or what the video game influencers have to say, they were all going into the negativity of how the system works, people being laid off when they shouldn't. And it's interesting because then the discussions around them explaining how they would run a company. And it's like, okay, are you going to do that? Or you just, to hear them say like they know how to do things, but we've seen in the past when games media is covering these topics that pop up, usually end up being incorrect or causing a stir. And I'm just going to real quick. So Destin is a big player, 114,000 subscribers. I guess not too big in terms of the influencer things, but we'll get there. But he has huge influence in IGN, millions and millions of people. I think he's great with his coverage. But he tends to be someone that will then get stuck in this negativity and then double down on it, not realizing the hypocrisy. And I'm going to get to the hypocrisy here shortly. We also have RGT85. I like that this guy is, he's got a cool personality. He's edgy and stuff. He always does videos like, oh, they hate me. I made this person mad. And then watch his content. It's really just double downing again on that sort of premise. And in a lot of, like, it's time to fire Phil Spencer. It's like, I mean, are you running this company? Do you even know how to run a company? I don't. I could say I don't. But again, this is the narrative. And then again, Giant Bomb, Giant Bomb 242 subscribers, although they've always utilized their website as the means of getting their content. They've been bought multiple times, have had people laid off, but then they will posture and have these long-winded monologues of how horrible the games industry is, Microsoft is, laying off people. Why is this happening? And then we even have kind of funny games. They're at 295. Oh, and I meant to bring up what's crazy is this RGT85 has 497,000 subscribers. But he has more of that sort of, what do you call it? That kind of clickbaity anger content. And again, I don't want to make it seem like I'm calling out people, for doing things incorrectly or wrong. It's more of I'm exposing sort of this mentality you can get stuck in, and I don't think it's good for the industry or anybody. And I'm going to get more into that. And then, yeah, kind of funny with 295,000 subscribers. Same thing. They have this whole section about, do you trust Xbox? And, you know, how much of this is the act of being sucked into negativity and then wanting to talk about it, which I think is a lot of it. How much of it is, okay, let's jump on this because this will get us our hits or whatever. You know, I don't know. But, you know, what the issue is so I'll start with when I'm watching the coverage, you know, hey, yeah, I can understand, okay, yeah, this studio got laid off, they made these games, what's next? You know, we don't know. Even Microsoft doesn't know. So that would end there. But then they go even further saying, you know, oh, this is a sign of Xbox, you know, closing down. They're losing. So this is like regurgitating the same remarks before when someone, you know, first leaked about multi-platform Xbox games, and the whole thing about, oh, Xbox is going, and then it's like that took over the narrative of gaming for a week, and I think that's going to be happening here, because not only will, you know, these individuals, and people say they a lot online, but I'm trying to connect the they with literal examples here of like acting like they know how to run a company. So here's the thing, layoffs do suck, and it's too bad that they happen. And here's the thing, I'm 40, I've been laid off multiple times, I've been with companies where layoffs have happened, and I just happen to be safe. And I have learned you just have to be prepared and have a skill set. I guess it's not really the skill set; it's just be able to maneuver whenever needed. And is that right or wrong? I don't know. I would love to be able to have a comfortable, cushy job that I didn't have to ever worry about being laid off, and I really would. So then the next step is, okay, if you guys hate this so much and want to just talk and say, oh, we should do this. I mean, oh man, it was just crazy on, actually it's a whole different one I don't have up. It was actually Jeff Grubb's Game Mess yesterday with Mike Minotti. Mike Minotti was just going in how much he's mad at Xbox and all this stuff. And it's like, okay, do you then have a plan for what to do next? Because every time these layoffs happen, these influencers cover it and say like doom and gloom, I can't believe they're doing this, I hate executives. Then next week they're promoting the latest game that they got a code for and microtransactions. There was even a time where I think it was last week when it had to do with the Star Wars Outlaws DLC, Giant Bomb was defending those practices, which I wasn't saying you had to defend or hate on it, but that's where the hypocrisy comes in, because I brought it up to them last week, how it's like, you know, these microtransactions, especially an extra mission that's given to you if you pre-order, it's like, okay, well, when does that mission pop up? Shouldn't you be playing the game first before you get any extra missions? That logic, I don't get it. But at the same time, it's like publishers are coming up with ways to nickel and dime the user. But at the end of the day, they're still laying off people all the time. So obviously, I think when you hear people bring up that they're not too crazy about the microtransactions, something needs to be done about this, when the games media then defends it, especially when they are promoting games based on keys they've gotten, there's just a little stink of hypocrisy there. Because here's the example. Helldivers 2, just recently, there was an issue where people would then have to sign into PSN in order to play the game in countries, well, anywhere, but the countries that PSN wasn't available, so that would mean people couldn't play the game. So people that were directly affected, 170 countries, enough people had their voice raised, heard, where Sony changed that. But that game directly affects people that are playing it because then they can't play it. Now, what about layoffs? Most gamers that are playing games aren't being affected by the layoffs, so no one's actually standing up or doing anything about practices in games development and publishing that lead to layoffs. Instead, we're buying the games. We are consuming the media online of these games, and we're not doing anything about it. And then it's like, okay, Adam, why don't you do anything about it? Well, that's the thing is, I don't want to spend my time in, you know, I'm almost being a hypocrite because of this video, but I do 30 minutes, you know, segments Monday through Friday. And this is just a portion of that where I it's like I would love to do something if I can, but in my life where I am and what I've learned, I don't think there's much I could do to change the management structure of these large corporations. If there was a way to do it, if someone out there is smarter than me and knows and can like, again, Helldivers, the gamers got together and were able to have Sony reverse a decision on Helldivers. But when it comes to layoffs, because it's directly not affecting games media or a gamer, no one's really doing anything about it. So then I was saying, okay, well, then what do we do about it? No one really has an idea. And then my thought is like, okay, so are we going to just start going after everything we don't agree with that doesn't affect us? And I'm saying that because it's like, as much as I don't like practices of corporations when it comes to shareholders, bottom lines, making sure enough money is being made, there are other things that if I knew I could help with, I'd rather put my effort into. And that is, a lot of the means we are using to communicate with each other across the world electronically to complain about these things only exists because of forced child labor that happens in other countries in order to get the silicone, the minerals, the components necessary to build the microchips. Microchips are an amazing invention, and it is insane it exists, but it only exists through nefarious means that we are then. So when we're sitting back complaining about people getting laid off in a video game industry, it makes me feel like I am in a room with a bunch of younger children that are complaining about something that really doesn't matter in the world. Because if we're really going to make a change with how corporations work in the world, we're going to have to start with the means of production and resource management, because those are the basic things that allow corporations to then have the currency needed to then do whatever they want, right? And so I guess my point here is layoffs suck, and it's too bad that they happen, and I wish they didn't. I've been a victim to it. I've tried my best to be able to navigate it. I wish it wasn't a thing. But at the same time, when games media wants to complain and say they know what to do next and they don't do anything, but instead continue to cover, continue to promote games which promote the practices of these studios that then lead to these layoffs, it's just a bunch of hypocrisy. When any of these influencers are spending time wanting to talk bad about a video game publisher developer, they are then missing the point of why they are there, if that makes sense. It just, again, listening to the podcasts that I listen to on a regular basis, especially the ones yesterday, when all they're doing is being negative and coming up with how they think they could do it. It's like, well, then do it. Because and that was the other thing, because they were talking so bad about Xbox, which is like, okay, well, who are you talking about? Are you talking about an executive there, a person there? Do you remember when Xbox pretty much lost their money to remediate the Red Ring of Death fiasco? Or what about comparing Microsoft to other publishers? And they're really the only ones that were all into backwards compatibility, trying to make every game backwards compatible as possible. They didn't, but there was a lot. I mean, the fact that you could play the Xbox Revenge of the Sith on an Xbox One is pretty crazy, considering all the loopholes you'd have to go through there, but they just made it backwards compatible. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Because I think all these companies are going to do things we don't like, but at the same time, we want to recognize when they're at least doing things that are consumer friendly. If we could prop that up, that might help them understand those are the things that they need to continue to look after, what's best for the consumer. So just to look at the chat, Shirt Lad, good to see you. It's the Jim Sterling effect. You see it with people like Skill Up, like Young Yi. They try to do the YouTuber thing, but fall into the same pitfalls as the scummy journos. Yeah. And that's what happens. It's like you could see where you could get that escalated impressions and views, but it's if you're double downing on that sort of stuff. Midnight Hatter, you can make more money talking crap about video games than making video games these days. That's pretty crazy. Midnight Hatter, yes, there it is, Adam. Let's make a game. We can outperform the AAA guys. I believe it. I believe it. I mean, and we just look at the smaller studios out there, or we look at big games, and I brought this up, I think, yesterday or last week. Like, look at the games that are doing successful, that are small teams. Pal World, Helldivers 2, even though they got the support of Sony, it was kind of in a different way. It was almost like Sony had to allow them to work independently for that to happen. But again, Pal World, Helldivers 2, was there... there was some other games that, there's the Gray Zone Warfare of a recent release. There was that that content warning. There's these games that aren't made by AAA studios and that they happen to do really well. In fact, what's interesting is Sea of Thieves on PlayStation 5 is outperforming Stellar Blade. It's the industry doesn't really know, and that's the other part of it too. I forgot to bring up is that when Activision Blizzard was bought by Microsoft, this was before all the COVID crap went down. In terms of like this bubble burst that has occurred since then. And then Microsoft's like caught up in that, and they're like, well, and again, at the same time, it's like, yeah, there's so much money there, they could probably keep people's jobs. But again, like, I don't know the inner workings, the in and out of that. If I did, I would probably be in a different position in my life in terms of what I'm doing professionally. But I'm not. I'm sitting here on YouTube just like everyone else here I'm talking about. Again, I think the job of, a content creator online talking about video games should be the joy of video games, or if there's, time to be like the Helldivers 2 thing made sense once it came down to, okay, people in 170 countries can't play the game. Something needs to be done about that. And luckily, something was. Yeah, let's look at some other stuff. Adam's Communist Arc. I'm kidding. JMCalX, for now, as scientists from Florida have made strides in producing raw materials here in America through mineral separation tech being developed. That is pretty cool. I have not heard or kept up about that, but the fact that there are, American companies trying to get the stuff that's needed, because yeah, we're wanting to have a good relationship with Taiwan because they produce the microchips, and that's kind of like the war with China and Russia and US who can get the better microchips. Yeah, indie's better than AAA at this point, and it's true. Let's see. Oh, Ultranumerous, that's pretty cool. I'm noticing a trend of a lot of environmentalist focused processes, which is pretty cool. And that's very interesting. Aside real quick, I'm really fascinated about, the pyramids of Egypt. Right. And one, people say, oh, it could have been a power plant, this or that, because it is a fact that archaeologists, whoever, researchers, academia doesn't know what the pyramids were for and that they were not tombs. But the way it's constructed mimics, what is it called? Mine tilling. It's when you have excavated resources out of the earth, and when you put that waste aside, you have to do it in a way that when rainfall or weather hits it, it's not allowing more toxic chemicals to get into water supplies. You almost have to be able to contain it. And I was watching a video by an engineer saying the Great Pyramid is built like that. Anyway, so it looks like even our ancient ancestors knew how to produce microchips without slave labor. No. Anyway, that's it with that part. I really, 18 minutes. Well, I really wanted to get that out of the way because I'm afraid the podcast, because I love listening to podcasts when I work. It kind of keeps me busy while I'm working, and when they get negative, that doesn't help my work. And I'm putting this out there to hopefully be like, look, guys, if there's something we can do about it, let's talk about that. Okay. If not, and we want to talk about something how about the child slave labor? If not that, let's just understand, like, this is the way things are. And when things like the Helldivers 2 thing comes up where people can't play games, there is something that can be done about it. And I don't know, I could be wrong about my takes, but it's just, anyway, there's some news. EA believes over 50% of its development processes will be positively impacted by generative AI. So I'm wondering, I bet there's a degree where generative AI is going to be very helpful in gaming, especially if you already build a system that then utilizes AI to then use their own, what am I trying to say? Their own content, their own assets. It's basically an asset builder. This stuff has existed before. I mean, even in Unreal, there's tech for when you're laying textures or mapping out maps. There's a degree of generative AI that's occurring, but it could just be now that you can implement large language models within your organization that takes in and containerizes the data just within certain silos. That then allows you to really be very specific in the generative AI you're using. So let's say in a new FIFA game, they want to kind of create a dynamic, I don't know, turf, grass. And I could be wrong. I don't know a lot about soccer. And then let's say the generative AI is supposed to work with how the model of a cleat would hit the grass, and it would make the grass actually, move and interact based. I'm just using this as an example. They would then build a large language model or small language model, I don't know, that would just be all about that game, the assets they have for that game, the physics involved, and then have the systems work with each other. And some of it might not necessarily be generative AI, but it may be more tools that you're using that then can communicate with each other just to get things done that then you don't have to do on your own manually. So, and even in my line of work, I've been coming across more practical use cases for AI, and I think it's really going to be very useful, but just not in the way we think. Not in the way we think. So, and again, this is another example where this isn't anything negative. Like, sure, you can just, oh man, okay, I'm not going to get into that. I was going to talk about something about my job, but maybe I just keep it. But I'll just say that there are people that are just constantly scared about AI. So every question they ask is about, well, what about this? What about that? And we've kind of gone beyond that. There are, and I forget what it's called. There's in Microsoft, there's an AI layer above the AI in general that will make sure it won't respond to certain things a human can ask. It's almost like a moral code that's built into this AI layer. Anyway, so I thought that was pretty interesting. This I thought was pretty cool because I'm like, maybe I could do something with this. So Bandai Namco US is giving a 10-foot Elden Ring statue to whoever can make the best trailer. Not that I could fit that anywhere, but it's pretty cool that they're asking to make, a trailer that's no longer than 5 minutes. And it looks like there's not really any specific, it could be comedy, it could be action, it could be best editing. Like, that's pretty neat. So in my head for the next few days, I might try to think of like, if I was going to edit something with Elden Ring, what's something that I can manifest that I like about it? Part of it was how can I incorporate maybe like black metal music with Elden Ring, kind of get that feel, the atmosphere, the unsettledness, but like the action of black metal. I don't know. I might have to look at this later because that's pretty cool. Let me refresh this real quick because that's old stuff. Okay. Devolver co-founder says large-scale game dev crushing under its own weight a little bit. Well, yeah. This is almost like what we were just talking about. We have these smaller devs. Devolver, awesome, like indie publisher. They've been around for more than 10 years. I forget exactly, but they've come out with they always come out with very unique and interesting games. And yeah, they're saying it how it is. I mean, that's the truth of it. And it's funny because not only is this happening, but Disney even announced that they're only going to be releasing 3 films a year, maybe 2 shows, which that still seems like a lot. But this is another example of it's not just the video game industry that's going through all this crap, okay? It's really how the economy is run in the first place. So a lot of times, again, going back to when we're pigeonholing video game company executives, we're like missing the bigger picture. Let's see. Dragon Age Dreadwolf will reportedly launch by 2025. I know people have been waiting for a new Dragon Age game, and Dreadwolf, I guess, is the one that they've had to like kind of reconfigure. It'd be interesting to see as a modern game how this turns out. I wasn't really into the other Dragon Age games, but that is something to look forward to, that there is a big release like this coming in March 2025. EA CEO says there's a real hunger among developers to use AI to speed up development. Okay, that is key here. And also, I don't know with that other EA post how much of their AI is really generative AI and more of just AI systems, yeah, again, to help speed up processes. And I can already see it like in my line of work where there are things that I can ask the AI to do that kind of speeds things up. Or not necessarily. Yeah, and I guess it is speeding up in the way because you can kind of help the AI. The AI can help you conceptualize concepts, and then use that as a jump off point to get a bigger point across. Sonic Mania Plus is now available on mobile via Netflix. That's a good get for Netflix as they're trying to push like this video game initiative. Sonic Mania is like the best Sonic game that's come out in a while, so pretty cool. Earthbound getting 30th anniversary concert stream, pretty neat. I know this was like one of those cult classics growing up where people was like, oh, I want the it to be released in the US, and I've never played these games. Redfall was reportedly set to get an offline mode this month before Arcane Austin was closed. Yeah, let's be real, this game didn't do well. Not many people were playing it. It doesn't make money. You know, I mean, are we supposed to be supporting developers where the games aren't making money? We're already complaining that too much money is put into gaming. Like, I tell you, there's, as I'm thinking about reactions that any of these people would have to any of these topics and realize how hypocritical it ends up being. I hope I'm not coming off mean because I really don't mean to. Let's see. Arena Breakout Infinite gameplay surfaces as closed beta starts. Yeah, another like shooter in, you know, after playing that Gray Zone Warfare, like I almost feel like the FPS is dead unless it's like I guess in terms of you can't just make a first person shooter. It's like you have to have a game with a good idea and then maybe it is in first person. But it seems to be like the Fortnite thing where it's like, okay, how can we just, you know, copy this? Gray Zone Warfare debuts in first on the Steam charts. That's crazy. And I think this game is pretty neat just because it's kind of open in what you can do, but it's super janky. Okay, Gray Zone Manor Lords. I should play that. Total War, Warhammer 3, Steam Deck, Helldivers 2, soccer game. Wow, Warhammer 3 is picked up. Total War. Let's see. Anything else? I think it's just sales stuff. Let's see. Ultronymous. Devolver has been on point for years calling out things like this, especially at E3. Yeah, they're good at that stuff. I like Devolver. I actually, on this channel, it's years and years and years ago, I have an interview with one of the guys from Devolver. This is back when they were much smaller. And it's an interview like at a convention. Did I have a mic? I forget. I had someone that was filming with me. I appreciated that. He helped me out early on. Okay, the Shirt Lad. AI essentially amounts to a heavily conditioned auto-sampler, be it an image generator or chatbot. It's conditioned to pop out a result. If the AI itself doesn't know a thing, it'll just make it up. Yeah. And that's why I feel like the term AI has just supplanted what the term automation, maybe. Yeah, wasn't it where the thing was everyone was scared of automation. And now we're just saying AI, and it's really the same stuff. Given the result of recent big games, I'm not sure speeding up the development process is wise. If anything, slow it down. Well, yeah, if I could see at first implementing AI systems into a workflow might be slow because you have to get it to work. But once that's done, it could be pretty quick. And I'm just thinking about that in terms of like PowerPoint. Here's something simple. You could put in a Copilot prompt that, hey, I need a PowerPoint slide or a PowerPoint deck about 20 slides with images having to do with technology on a presentation about AI. It will do that. And it will save me hours. And then I just have to fill in text. And sometimes it will auto-populate text and buzzwords. Then you can be like, okay, that works. I'll just kind of modify it. And I think once you've learned how to streamline that, it does speed up things. It's pretty crazy. I don't recall Redfall ever getting much marketing before launch. So, and maybe it didn't, but in my channels it did. It did get a lot, and I was super excited about it, especially when people started. There was like this thing that happened right before it came out where people, at first, you know, the people covering it was like, the game's not that great. And then over time, people were like, oh yeah, now I'm playing it and I get what they're doing here. It plays more like, and I forget the game they brought up. So then when the game came out, it was nothing like that. And it was pretty crazy. Yeah, FPS I feel are easy to make but hard to make good. Yeah, that is probably key there. Like, because you can go into these programs, pop something up that looks cool, but does it incorporate what you're trying to portray? Is there a system there? So, anyway, great chat, guys. I think this is about the top of the hour, so I got to run, or not hour, it's like a 30-minute increment. No, I got to get back to work, but thanks for everyone that joined. I'm glad I got to get this out and actually show examples. And again, I love each and every one of these people that make these videos. They provide excellent content for video gamers. It's just that there's like this gravity well that happens with negativity that we're all kind of getting sucked in. And it's like, okay, are we missing the point here? And we're now starting to be really negative. And if there are initiatives we want to do to make a change for the best, it's gonna have to be something other than trying to convince executives what to do with their money. It's gonna have to be something bigger than that. And I don't know what it is, but I was talking about the slave labor that happens for us to get these electronics. I almost think it has to start there somehow. But anyway, thanks for watching. I will do this again tomorrow morning. Have a good rest of the day. We'll talk later.